Hey guys, welcome to Model 6. In this model, we'll be learning how to create a customized ceiling with the ceiling function. Let's get started. So we can always click onto customize and click onto our ceiling function. Once we are in, I'm going to start by creating a customized ceiling on my living room. Alright, so we can always just click on the ceiling and then click on ceiling design. So as you can see, this is actually the layout, the floor plan of my living room. Alright, so first thing, we can always create an area, okay, by using the rectangle. Alright, so we can always use the rectangle and draw this. Alright, so right now, as you can see in my 3D over here on the right hand side, I've already drawn an area with the rectangle. Alright, next up, we are going to use the offset. Alright, so basically offset is to create the same shape, but you can either make it bigger or smaller. Okay, so I can just manually drag myself, or I can immediately just type in the gap. Alright, so I type in 300, so this is the 300 gap. Alright, so for this offset, I would like to extrude this offset higher. Okay, so to make it look like there's a shape. Okay, so to push it up, to extrude it higher, we can click on the offset layer, and then over here, as you can see off the top, which means the ceiling. Okay, so there's a ceiling layer of 300. Alright, so we need to change this to 10. Okay, so when I change this to 10, as you can see inside my 3D, the offset layer eventually extruded upwards. Alright, next we are going to do one more offset. Same thing, I am going to just type in 300 and click on enter. Right, so as you can see right now, I have a total of 1, 2, and 3 layer. Okay, so for this, I'll call it a centerpiece. So for this centerpiece, I'm going to extrude it back downwards. Okay, so to extrude it back downwards, we are going to change the off the top back to 300. And as you can see right now, my ceiling have a design like that. Alright, so right now I'm going to explain to you why do we have to change off the wall from 300 to 10, and from 10 we are changing it back to 300. Alright, so as you can see over here from this picture, alright, so you need to know first, okay, your ceiling height of your house is how much, right? So for example, my ceiling height is actually 3,000. All right, so always remember and keep that in mind whenever you are using the ceiling function and you are creating a customized ceiling. Automatically, when you click on the ceiling, they will eventually create a 300 ceiling layer, which means that your house will eventually look shorter, and the remaining would be 2007 after minusing 300 from 3000. Alright, which means that 2007 is actually the remaining height for your house. Alright, so do you remember that for the first layer, I actually told you to draw a rectangle. Okay, so by drawing a rectangle, I have created an area. Okay, and this is my first layer. And for the second layer, remember I told you guys to offset. Okay, so we actually offset. Once we are done offsetting, I told you guys to change from 300, we make it 10. Alright, so as we know this, the distance of this layer is actually 300. So to extrude all the way back upwards to create like a effect going in, when you change to 10, the ceiling went up here. And that is why on your second layer, it actually extrudes all the way up. All right, so we have a second layer going upwards. Next, if you remember, I told you guys to offset one more layer, which is the centerpiece. All right, I'm going to change the colors for this. So to make it more obvious, all right, I'm going to put green. So this is our centerpiece, which is our last offset. And for this offset from 10, and if you remember, I told you guys to change it back to 300. And eventually when you change it back to 300, it goes downwards. All right, so right now you will see something like that, and that is why we need to adjust the off the wall. So this is the theory of the ceiling layer. Next thing we want to do is we can click onto our second offset, second layer. All right, and if let's say we would like to generate a light strip across the side of our ceiling, we can always just click on the generate light strip button. And once we click on it, and as you can see over here in your 3D, there's a light strip generated. All right, and for your centerpiece, we are going to use the section edit function. So click onto your section edit function and you will see something like that. All right, so what you can do is we can always go to section library, and over here you can see angle. Okay, so this is basically the skirting of your ceiling. Okay, so what you can do is you can just drag it and put it here. All right, and as you can see from your 3D, it looks something like that. And you may also click onto the skirting. So over here on the edge strip properties, you can always rotate the shape of the angle, all right, until you find the pattern that you want. All right, you may also resize this. So the thickness, if let's say I don't want to make it so thick, I can always resize. And as you can see, it looks thinner. All right, we can also rotate our texture. We can also use the mirror function to mirror up and downwards. So for this box, we can also put in another type of skirting. So it actually builds under the ceiling, right? So for this one, same thing. If you would like to rotate, you would like to change the size, you can always do that in the edge strip properties. Okay, and for one last box over here, so I can always go to the light tube and put in a round light and put in a round tube. And as you can see, it creates a round tube over here, right? So you may also click on the lights and you can always change the lighting colors by clicking at this box. All right, so you can always adjust the colors to your own likings and also adjust the brightness. Next up, we can always use the material library, and over here we have a texture. All right, so we can always just click onto the texture. All right, maybe I'm going to choose a wood grain color and then just put right, and we can always drag it and put it on our 3D. So always remember, drag the materials onto 3D, all right, not onto the 2D layout, guys. All right, so we can drag it in to put in our materials. So don't forget the inner part of your ceiling. We want to cover everything up. Alright, and there you have it. A customized ceiling has already been created. Right now, onto this side of the wall. So right now, I'm going to show you how to import a 2D drawing onto your ceiling function. Right, so we can click onto the wall, click on background wall design. All right, once we are in, we can click on the wall surface, right click, and then start importing your models by clicking on the local area. All right, so sometimes you can also draw a 2D drawing and import it into our ceiling function. So let's just open up this NBA player. Alright, so as you can see, I actually draw this in AutoCAD. Alright, so we can also import this, but always make sure that you convert your file from a DWG file into a DXF file. Only you can successfully import into the function. Alright, so we can always start by doing our positioning and resizing. Okay, we can always press on T. All right, T for Titanic. So we can first T, okay, we can always rotate slightly a little bit. Okay, and then we can press T again to resize it. Okay, make it smaller. Once we are done, we press T again to position it. Just like that. Right, so if you want to adjust, you can always press T to rotate it back a little bit. Press T and adjust your placing. Right, so once I'm done adjusting my NBA player, okay, so right now if I zoom closer onto my 3D, all right, so this drawing is actually laying flat onto my wall. So if let's say I want to make it into like turn it into like a 3D effect, so I can just click onto the NBA human and I can always change off the wall. So we are going to increase to 50. Okay, it depends on how much you want it to be extruded out. So as you can see, once I increase it 50, it looks like a 3D. It has a 3D effect. All right, so now same thing, we can always click on the human and use the section edit function. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a light tube around this human. Okay, so same thing, we go to section library, light tube, and drag a round tube out and just place it right over here. Okay, same, if you would like to change the colors and the brightness, okay, you can always just click on the light tube and adjust your settings. Right, once we are done, we can always use the material library and put on some textures. Right, so same thing, I'm going to use a lacquerette. I'm going to use a warm color. And I'm just going to drag it, and always remember, drag it onto your 3D. So you might want to paint your wall, put some texture on your wall as well. So I'm going to use a wood grain for my wall and just drag and place it onto your 3D just like that. All right, next up, onto this wall. All right, so I'm going to teach you how to create continuous paving frame, or you can call it a wall panel frame. All right, so same thing, we can click onto this wall and click on background wall design. All right, so we can see the entire wall in the 2D layout. All right, so we are going to start by using a rectangle to draw a rectangular shape. All right, so you can just simply draw it first, and always remember, we can always click on the rectangle and resize it again according to our likings. All right, so I'm going to just do 1002 for my width, and over here I'm just going to do 600. all right? Or maybe I can do it 800. Okay, so over here, we can always use the numbers to position our wall panel frame. Okay, so this one, we can just adjust manually. Okay, 900, 900, so it's in the middle. If let's say I want to make it higher, slightly higher a little bit, so I can put over here 750 and 900, right? So next up, we have a rectangular shape over here. So we can always use the section edit function. Click on the section edit function and we can start putting in our angle. Okay, so when we put in our angle, you can see it actually creates sort of like a frame. Okay, so make sure you adjust the rotate it. Okay, and if you would like to make it slightly thinner, not too fat, all right, so we can always adjust the size. Right, next up, we can always choose the material right over here. Okay, and then we can just change the material. Choose. All right, so once we are done with one frame, and what if I want to have multiple frames? Okay, what if I want to have multiple frames across my wall, maybe 2 to 3? All right, so we don't need to do it one by one all over again. So there's a function. You can always just click onto the rectangle, right click, and use this paving, continuous paving. So we're just gonna continue, just drag it like that. All right, so before we click on enter, we can always type in the gap size. So as you can see, if I type in 100, there's a gap in between these two panels. All right, so if I make it 300, there's a 300 gap. All right, so if let's say I want to have 3 frames, okay, I'm just gonna drag until 3 and just click enter. And eventually they will duplicate the wall panel frame for you. So right now we can always go to cloud. All right, we can put in some wallpapers over here in our finishing. Okay, we can use the wallpaper. We can use like this type of patterns. Just put it here. All right, or you can put maybe a solid color. That's up to you, right? So we can always just put in and try to decorate, and you may also drag onto your frame. Okay, so it's not a must to use the materials inside selling function. You can also use the cloud function to drag materials onto the skirting, or we call it a frame, okay, for your wall panel. All right, so we are done with module 6, which is the ceiling function. All right, so good luck trying, guys.